Well, we'd like to welcome everyone on this wonderful Mother's Day to What Would Love Do from our NCG studios in Texas. Got a different co-host today. I'm sure everyone can tell, instead of my wife, I've got my son back. My wife would be here today, but she's a little bit under the weather. Too much Mother's Day celebration, I guess. Whatever. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, it's good to have Stephen back with us.
It's good to be back.
Been missing you. Hope you're going to hang around a little more.
I believe I will.
Well, good. He's been busy, by the way. Tell us a little bit about you, what you've accomplished.
Well, I took on 3 college courses this semester, and it was challenging working or managing a restaurant, having a family with 3 children, and everything that goes on here at the studio, and 3 full-time courses is a bit much.
Yeah.
But made it through. Kept a pretty high grade point average, not as high as my wife, but she has a 4.0. I didn't quite make that, but
Well,
3.7 is pretty close. So
I didn't see her managing a restaurant while she was.
Well, she was managing 3 children while she did it. So
That's true. Well, I'm proud of both of you. I mean, either one of those grades is commendable, and getting all that, doing all that at one time is commendable. And the neat thing about it, I can say this, and to me, it's a plug for what we're about here at New Covenant Group. That is that, I don't guess it's so much the fact that you took on all those things at one time, but the importance that you give to each one of them. It's one thing to manage a restaurant. You can go hide somewhere and let it run itself. I know you don't do that. It's another thing to go to school. You can cheat, figure out a way to pass the course, or just flunk out. I know you didn't do that. You could neglect your family and say, well, y'all going to have to fend for yourselves because I'm too busy. Or you could let things go here at the studio. And you haven't done any of those. And so, that to me, that just makes it that much more significant. And I'll say to you in front of everybody, I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Glad to call you my son. Okay, thanks for joining us today.
If I would have known that, I would have went to school a long time ago.
Well,
finally figured out what was going to make you proud of me.
Yeah, right. He knows better. He knows I've been proud of him the whole time, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Ever since I first laid eyes on you. You were 0 minutes old. I mean, I was the first one that ever got to see you. We won't go into detail there. Anyway, today I had something on my mind that I thought would be a good thing to talk about. First of all, just for the fun of it, I don't know, it may be a Texas thing. We nearly always say NCG Studios in Texas. And I think we kind of do it on purpose. It's people in Texas always, proud of Texas, it's the place to live and all that. I wouldn't say we're like that, but we may be a little bit. But sometimes I can't help but wonder when we say, we're here in Texas, what people around the world, other parts of the country, maybe that have never been to Texas, what they picture, Oh, I bet they live out on the desert, take their cowboy hats off to, do the broadcast. But there are plenty of cowboys around here, but actually where we live is surrounded by lakes and rivers and 3 or 4 national forests. And so we're in the woodsy parts of East Texas, if that means anything to anyone. Now on to something more significant. I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed Dr. Jones's teaching this morning. And the interesting thing is, it is something, and he admitted, he said, I know I've taught on this many times, and he has, but there's something about it that it just when you're growing and you're learning things that empower you, that just kind of put a new perspective on everything you've learned in the past. I don't know. I don't know if I can say that it just doesn't get old, or maybe there's more to it each time. I'm not sure what it is, but this morning I come away with just all kinds of new thoughts and just wonderful realities. And what he was dealing with was something that I think is one of the more popular passages in the Bible. Uh, and I'll tell this. I'll tell on myself a little bit. I used to be real religious, and I got started in. I don't know. I guess, in all honesty, I wanted to get serious about God uh, and living my life the way I should. I don't know how to put it. There's a number of ways you can put it. But I began to get serious about it back in, I don't know, about 1975. And it's been a few years. But back in my early days, I had a lot of zeal, kind of like what you read. I can't remember who said it. I know it's a quote from the Bible. Sorry, I'm a little rusty here. But zeal without knowledge is what I had. And I was working a job where I had to wear a hard hat. And I thought, well, this will be interesting. I'll try to, generate some conversation. So I wrote across my hard hat, "You must be born again." And I thought I knew what that meant. And so I never did really get much conversation out of it, but I thought, that's an important thing. People need to be born again. And what that means is they need to give their heart to the Lord and get saved and change their destination, from going to hell to going to heaven, and get right with the Lord. All the things that you learn in your average church setting. And but this is what Dr. Jones was dealing with this morning, that particular passage where Jesus and Nicodemus are having a conversation. And do you remember what the better translation of that would be? Can you think of it?
Well, I know. I can't quote word for word what he said, but basically he said, not saying be born again, or really even born from above, as if you're so much higher, but being above the standard of what was being taught that day.
Yeah.
Be above the religion that was there that day.
Yeah.
In time.
Well, I think what he said specifically was, it's inevitable that you rise above. And he used, apparently he was using metaphor, which Jesus had a habit of doing. And it's a wonderful way to teach, for that matter. But it's also a way that people can misread you, and that's exactly what Nicodemus did. It was terminology that, you pick up in the conversation. As far as Jesus was concerned, it's something that Nicodemus should have been able to pick up on. And I still kind of wonder if there wasn't a hint of sarcasm there coming from Nicodemus, because when he replied by saying, "What, we got to go back into our mother's womb?" I mean, come on. I don't think he really thought that Jesus was saying that, unless they were a little farther out in left field than what I think they were.
Right.
But apparently that term that he was using could be used in different ways, not just as in childbirth or, in that aspect of things, but it apparently could also be used in the idea of, getting above something, getting beyond something. And the significance that it had to me, where it got my mind going this morning is, okay, if this is what Jesus was saying, and I'm convinced that it is, that what he had to offer and where he intended to take people was above where they were. In other words, and I can't help but think of how Paul dealt with the teachings of Jesus when he came into the realities of what he actually taught, what he actually said, and to put it in NCG terminology, what he brings to the table. And I love to put it that way because I think the New Covenant group, that's what we want to represent. When we invite all other, everyone else actually, to the table, including and most certainly, well, how do I say it? I mean, I'm enjoying the fact that we're getting so many atheists come our way. It means more to me every day because I've changed my mind about, number one, what an atheist is. Number two, what they're like. I mean, the list goes on. In other words, I've, without actually spending a lot of time getting to know anyone individually who refers to themselves as an atheist, just getting to know them through NCG has changed my mind tremendously. And, the thing that I love what they bring to the table, but what we're bringing to the table is, I would say, a Jesus that is quite different than what has been represented up until now. Do you have something to say to that? I don't want to run the conversation here.
No. I did have, kind of an appreciation for, well, not a kind of appreciation, a big appreciation for the things that were said this morning. But one of the things that I've realized over the course of this past semester, with how difficult things got towards the end with finals and my certain classes and everything, is how lazy I have been in my thinking. I haven't really been challenged in a long time, other than the challenges that I've been facing here at the NCG, and that is to get rid of the baggage
Right.
that we've carried for a long time.
Yeah.
And I realized how much baggage has actually been placed on me, but how much laziness are on most Christians. One of the things that Dr. Jones pointed out this morning, he pointed out the fact that it's Mother's Day, and he encouraged mothers. Actually, this is a conversation we had after his message this morning. He encouraged the mothers to just be good mothers. There's no book or guideline or anything that they can pick up and say, oh, this is how to be a good mom. Right. You learn that by experience. You get in there with your kids and you learn your kids. You learn what's good and what's bad. You learn how to treat them. You learn how, by the way, the things they do, the way they treat you. That's what it takes to be a good mom. And he pointed out that most men just kind of get in the way with that. But when you were talking about the story of Jesus and Nicodemus, they used guidelines, they had rules, they had regulations, they had books or scrolls. And today we have books. One of them, the main one, is called the Bible. And to me, that's just lazy. It allows you to not have to think about things. Well, that's what the book says, so that's how it is. And that guideline is used. And I don't know, just a reality has been hitting me lately at how I applied that, not just to a religious walk and the way I thought of God, but in everything in life. Mm-hmm. It was just, I was looking for a guideline or a rule or something to follow because I've been lazy. I haven't been using my brain. I haven't been thinking through things. And one thing that, I guess it's a big part of what I've been learning in school is just how to think, because we have teachers, and they do have certain guidelines and certain rules, but it's up to us to use our brain to sort through things and to not just be able to parrot what's being said, but actually understand it and be able to do these things without having a book or a guideline in front of us. And I was just, I know his message this morning was a lot deeper than that into, what Scripture actually says, but I guess a generalized view of what I got from it was just stop being lazy.
Yeah. Well, don't fault yourself too much in that, because actually, and your mom and I were a big part of this as far as your upbringing, and that is that that's actually encouraged. This is the book. Everything you need about life is right here. If it goes beyond this, you don't need it. And don't ask questions. Don't question any of it. That's very dangerous to do, because you're actually questioning God Himself, and He's very touchy. I mean, depending on what brand of Christianity you're involved in. It depends on how touchy he is. But I guarantee you, if you look and go through the Old Testament, you find out that he gets upset real easy. And matter of fact, you get the impression he stays upset most of the time. And so you're actually not just discouraged from questioning and from learning and having another authority besides the Bible. I'll just put it in those terms. You're not only discouraged from that, but you're encouraged not to do that. So there is some overcoming that needs to take place, and some liberating that actually does take place when you come to realize these things. And I was thinking about this just this week. I had an encounter with an old friend, and I definitely consider him a friend. Not a close friend, because we don't get together a lot. We don't see each other that often. But it's one that we used to spend a lot of time together back when I was more religious. And he was and really still is somewhat religious, but I can see where we've gone two different directions, and want to relate just a little bit of this, because it has everything to do with what we're talking about here. When we saw each other, he made the comment to me. He said, I got a preacher that wants to have a conference with you. And I said, okay. And he said, I was telling him about you, and he thinks you're nuts. And I said, well,
imagine that.
Yeah, really. I said, I'm really not that interested in talking to somebody that already knows everything. And the reason I said that is because that's how I used to be. As a matter of fact, he went on to say he's going to see if he can't get you saved. And I said, well, he can forget that. I said, I don't play that game anymore. I don't, this getting saved thing is a thing of the past for me. I don't think it's part of what we have. I don't think it's what God's about at all. But anyway, let me see if I can figure out exactly where I was going with this. Well, I told him, I said, I realize that a lot of things that we say are kind of hard to swallow. They're quite different than what you'll hear in your average church, no doubt. But I asked this man, he's several years older than me, actually. And I said, you've been around a long time. I said, I don't doubt but what you've heard this said before. Have you ever heard anyone say, don't read that Bible too much, it'll make you crazy? And he said, yeah, I have heard that. And I said, well, it's true. If you read it and you try to apply it and you try to make sense of it all and make it all fit together, I said, you would have to be crazy. Talk about being nuts, that'll make you nuts. I said, because I said, on the one hand, you've got the commands, and one of the commands is, thou shalt not kill. And then Jesus come along and add emphasis to that. He said, love your enemies, as opposed to killing your enemies. And I said, then you've got God throughout the Old Testament. Every time you turn around, he's telling them to kill everybody. And even to the point of one time, supposedly, he sent a flood and wiped out everybody on the face of the earth except David. And he's... some might find this hard to believe. I hope we've got people listening that they can know what's out there, what kind of thinking is out there. He said, well, yeah, that's the part I like, all the killing. He said he told them not just to kill the men and women, but kill the babies. And he was going to continue. I kind of cut him off, but he was saying something about that gets rid of the seed, so it can't reproduce, and they can't keep reproducing these. And basically, the enemies of God, I suppose, that is the way apparently that the Jews thought.
Well, apparently it didn't get rid of all the evil seed if he still wants to see the babies dead.
No, they're still around and alive and well right here in East Texas. But I said, okay, if that's what you want, if that's the God you want, you can have it because it's there in the Bible. But you're going to have to throw out the commandments. You need to throw out the teachings of Jesus because he's opposed to all that. And so back to the subject. If we go back to what Jesus was telling Nicodemus, it's inevitable that you rise above. Now, what did he need to rise above? Well, we just nailed it. We just nailed the biggest issue there is, really, as far as I'm concerned, relationship. I mean, when the thing that Jesus brought, and, there's so much I'd like to say today. I think we could sit here for 3 hours today and just keep this conversation going, but I'll try to condense it and just say the things that we have time for. But when I think of and I compare the average, and I don't know if I know what I'm talking about here, but the average atheist. I'm learning atheists, and really, to be honest with you, I hate even using the term. I don't like using the term atheist or theist. I mean, we have to identify one another from a certain position. And I know Bob Graves likes to talk about this. It's let's get rid of the us and them. And I think New Covenant Group is doing that. The label just becomes, this is where I am right now. This is the way I think, and no more than that. And that part of it's wonderful because we're just people. We're people sitting down at the table having conversation, talking about why we are the way we are. And when I think of, or what I've seen so far among atheists, there's just people who say, I reject any notion of God that I've seen thus far. Give me some proof. Give me something that I can sink my teeth into that would cause me to believe that there is a God of some sort. And that's about as honest as you can be. Now, when I think of my position and I will call myself a theist, one who believes in a God. And I believe this God has everything to do with this one named Jesus. Now, I can set that aside, and I'm getting to the place to where I can say, okay, he doesn't necessarily have to be God, but can we listen to what he said? And what he was saying to Nicodemus is it's inevitable that you rise above, that you get above this way of thinking. I mean, I realize you've been steeped in it for centuries. You've had this attitude, love your neighbor, hate your enemy. Go in and say that I'm telling you, or that God is telling you to kill all these people. They're all wicked. I'm cleansing the land and giving it to you. And just everything about them, all this blood sacrifice, everything that they were involved in. Basically, he's saying, it's time to rise above all this. Now, here's the good part. And I want to spend a little time talking about this. Let's get specific here. What are some of the particulars? What did he mean about rising above? Well, first of all, let's get real basic. Quit killing each other. There's a starting place. Quit killing each other. See if you can have a civil conversation instead. But then, and I look at this man, Paul, who Ricky Johnson, I'm going to mention his name. He won't show his face, but he's a very important guy in Pensacola. And I'm just going to give a shout out to Ricky Johnson because not only is he, what do we call it here in the studio? The guys that are setting things up, they're the back. You've got the front and the back. I'm not good with this. You're supposed to help me out here. Joey knows what I'm talking about. He's listening. Yeah, the guys that get it all set up, that do the important part. I mean, we wouldn't be sitting here doing this if it wasn't for the ones who set all this up. But anyway, Ricky's always behind the scenes, but don't think that he's not an intelligent man with a lot of good things to say. And I hope I haven't said too much and lost where I was going, because it was something, where was I? Help me out here. Something that he said that I was going to quote.
Well, you didn't get that far, so I don't know what it was he said.
Oh my goodness, I'm bad about that, especially when I've got so many good things to say, so much that I'm excited about. I'll get back to it. But just know that Ricky Johnson is a very significant person. Hey, Rick. But to get to the specifics of Jesus. Okay, I remember. I knew I would.
There you go.
He used the term arrested. And I like that term. It's he would use it in a very positive way. When you're arrested by love, what does that mean? You got arrested one time, didn't you? And you married the one who arrested you. She locked you got her locked up in your heart, or she locked you up in her heart. I don't know exactly how to say it, but you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And I would hear Ricky use that in reference to himself, and I've seen the terminology used in a different way by the Apostle Paul. He would talk about being arrested, or in so many words. And I think that this is what Jesus was in reference to when he was talking to Nicodemus. He was taken from this, let's face it, before whatever happened to Paul on the road to Damascus, he was a terrorist. He was trying to wipe out this new movement, this new way. As a matter of fact, they were already talking about it in those terms, from what I understand, the way. Just a few years later, he was talking about something that he referred to as the most excellent way. And when I think of this terroristic Jew who like Nicodemus, needed to rise above, needed to find the place where God rules. This is the way God does things. How? Well, up until that time, they thought he tells people to go in and kill other people and take their land, sacrifice goats and sheep and pigeons and a bloodbath, and I'll accept you for another year. And then one day, I guess he intended to send his son, who really is himself, and He'll spill his blood, and that'll be good enough to satisfy him concerning all of us. Paul went apparently from all of that to saying, let me show you the most excellent way, and here it is. It's love. And let's get more specific. It's kind. It's gentle. It doesn't even keep a record of wrongs. Now let's juxtapose the two. What was Jesus actually saying to Nicodemus? You need to go from this to this. Now, let's just keep it in simple terms like we are. If it's from killing your enemies to showing this attitude toward your enemies, that is the attitude of kindness, the attitude of, you know what, I'm not going to hold the wrongs against you. You've been my enemy. You've done me wrong in many ways, but I'm not going to hold it against you. Now, here's what I'm proposing, and then I want to get your thoughts on it. Even if it turns out that we theists are wrong and we die and that's it, or whatever, after death we either don't exist anymore or we realize it wasn't what we thought it was, whichever. Until then, this that Jesus brings to the table, if we can actually do this, if this can be accomplished among people, what would it do? If we could actually have that attitude toward one another. I mean, if no one kept a record of wrongs of one another and their approach to each other was always kind. Now, there's so many thoughts. I mean, this is Mother's Day, right? And one thing that has been popular for a long time, and it's losing popularity, and I'm very thankful for that, is this idea of the macho man. I think a lot of it came from the Judaistic idea. Man is the head, man is the man. He's strong, and he don't mind killing, and he don't mind fighting, and in other words, you don't associate a man with gentleness, kindness, things of that nature. I was thinking about the fruit of the Spirit, which simply means this is what the Spirit of God is like. This is what is produced in the life of someone who's taken on God's character. In other words, in Jesus' term, who's risen above. He has joy, he has peace, long-suffering, gentleness, meekness. I think about that movie, Groundhog's Day. It makes me think of what Bill Murray said. He said, are we talking about a man here?
Yeah.
Are we talking about men? It sounds like we're talking about women. Why did they kill Jesus? They couldn't stand him. He wasn't a man. They could make fun of him. They could do all these things to him, and he wouldn't even fight back. Is that what he was talking about, the most excellent way? I think so.
Yeah. I think that out of everything brought out today, that would be the most significant, is simply our attitudes, the way we live. It's unfortunate that we have to have places like the New Covenant group, for example, that have to tear down walls and barriers of people that think that there's this abusive father that fathered creation, fathers everybody here, but he's abusive. He wants to kill and torture, and that's how he straightens out his children, is with violence.
Yeah.
And we have so much of that going on today, and it's because, in my opinion, mostly because of religion.
Yeah.
Because that's the way they depict the one that supposedly created everything. He's an abuser.
Yeah.
But I'm very thankful that we have places like the New Covenant group, people like Dr. Jones and like those involved here, because those walls need to be torn down. And people do need to be shown the most excellent way. So for me, it's not so much of proven, is there a God or isn't there a God? But it's, what do we do with the life we've been given? Do we abuse? Do we abuse people? Do we abuse our brethren, our children? Or do we need that changed to live this most excellent way that you're referring to? And like you said, the outcome may be that we're all wrong. But how much could we enjoy life if we could just learn to love, like is described there?
Yeah.
To be patient and kind with one another, to share, to be gentle and meek, life would be a blast. And,
like the song says.
Yeah. So for me, I'm glad I'm past that struggle, because I mean, even as a strong religious person at one time, I still struggled with the idea of, is God actually real? I mean, for the most part, wholeheartedly, I believed that God is real and he was how I thought he was. But then there were those times of doubt that crept in, and I just thought, oh, that's Satan trying to take something from me.
Yeah.
But now, I don't even want to claim a position right now, because I do want to know. I would love to have fact and evidence that God is real, he's present, because I still believe that he is, without fact and without evidence. But more than that, my goal and my desire is just to be a good person, and for that to reflect on everybody else, and for them to see that, for them to glean from that. And, if you believe there's a God, great. If you don't, great, But the attitude.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it brings up something that I think your mom and I touched on last time. And my view at this point, and I don't mind sharing my view, it may be different next week, but that's okay too, because, I'm enjoying learning, I'm enjoying growing. There was a time when I was more like what I described earlier, one who I thought I knew it all, only to find out I knew little or nothing. Had a lot to learn, still do. But my viewpoint at this particular time, if someone asked me, okay, I want to hear your thoughts about what is God like? And I'll just use this analogy just to give a little description of what I think of God speaking practically. And that is that if we really are where he would like for us to be, if we have taken that which he provided for us and are living that way and expressing that, I would say that when we look at one another, just like I'm looking at you right now, you're my son, that's wonderful. I'm proud of that fact. I wouldn't trade you for anyone in the world as a son. But more than that, you're another human being, because I could be talking to any other human being right now for that matter. But I know you, and I know the love that I have for you. And in expressing that and in enjoying that relationship, I believe we're knowing God. We're loving God. That's the way he is. He doesn't need me to say, oh, I love you, Stephen. Oh, I love you, God. I got to feel you, and I got to see you in my mind or whatever. I don't know that I even need to do that. I was one that I've been there. I used to spend time trying to satisfy him and trying to satisfy me, Oh, he wants all this. He wants me to raise my hands, and I don't mind doing that. It doesn't embarrass me. I don't see anything wrong with it, as long as you really know the one that you're trying to express something toward. But I think the real important thing is, John said it like this, the Apostle John, and I think he was he had a hold to something when he said it. He said, "How can you say you love God whom you can't even see if you don't love your brother whom you can see?" There's something there.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, when it comes to relationships, if God is that way, then he's got to be in you, because there's no other way that I can express my love truly to him unless I'm expressing it to you or to my wife or to my children, because I can't pretend anymore into the air, and tell God that I love him or that he's awesome or whatever. It seems so fake to me now, and that's personal. I'm just speaking from my personal experience. Like, if my wife were to move on the other side of the world and we had no contact through phone or computer, Skype, anything, just no contact whatsoever, and I just heard it through the grapevine that she's mad at me because I haven't told her I loved her, my response is going to be, "Come home, dang it."
Yeah.
Come spend time with me, be with me. Because that's how I express my love, is when it's, when you're right here.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can tell you I love you. I can show you I love you.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I feel like by loving my family, loving my friends, loving people around me, I feel like that's how I express my love.
Yeah. Well, to take this back to what people read, I brought one with me. I still keep it around in case I want to make some sort of quote from it. It's Bible. NIV, put together by a bunch of different theologians representing a bunch of different denominations, trying to satisfy a lot of different ideas. But there's a little known statement. It's made 2 or 3 times by the Apostle Paul in his letters. It's very well hidden and very little known, but that's why, I keep going back to this. There's a song that your mom wrote that I won't be satisfied as long as I'm still alive on this planet until it's being heard much more than it is now. I won't really be satisfied until it's heard around the world. It's called "We Are Family." And she just simply says, we're family. There's just one body. We're children of our Father who is over all, through all, and in all of us. That little statement there, he's in all of us. When I talk to, and when we commune and we get together and we have sweet conversation with our atheist friends, and they might not like me calling them brother, I don't know. They are brother human beings, which is good enough. I mean, that's what we're talking about anyway. But I see them as children of our Father with God in them, whoever that may be. But I see it expressed. I see it expressed from them, the ones that are involved in New Covenant Group. And the problem in the past has not been them, it's been me. Because I've gone along with the idea that that's not true. He's not in them if they haven't invited him in. He's not in them if they don't believe in him. That's like saying, you're not my son if you don't believe you are. What's that got to do with it? And so it's not so much what they believe about the matter, it's what do I believe about the matter as to how I'm going to approach them or anyone else for that matter. And so it is all about attitude. And like I said, if we can, I did want to address something that you said, because it's another thing that Paul actually brings out when he's dealing with the issue of love, this excellent way. And it's another thing that you don't hear much about, especially in reference to God, because supposedly God is love, right? Mm-hmm. And love is not, according to what Paul said, it's not self-seeking. Isn't that interesting? I'd never thought about that being applied to God. You know, if there is a God and he's the one that it's like Paul is describing here, it's not about him. It's not a self-seeking thing. He's interested in us. He's interested in what we're doing and how we relate to one another. And that would make sense to what Jesus said, other than the fact that supposedly he said, this is my commandment. I command you, love one another. Well, okay. The neat thing is, it's not something that is accomplished by command. It's accomplished by a relationship. And once again, this is what New Covenant Group is all about. As far as I'm concerned, it is what church should have been about all along. But I'm afraid church has been more interested in segregating itself.
Yeah, we saw some horrible examples of that this week.
Oh, wow.
2 funerals in 1 week of, well, one was really close and one was just more of an acquaintance, but the family was close. Mm-hmm. It was hard to sit through, you know, because you see a bunch of people hurting. You know, one was a young individual that took his own life, and had a wife and 2 young children. You know, his mom still living. He left brothers. I mean, left a lot of family behind, and they were hurting. And the comfort they received was a 45-minute lecture on suicide, what it is, what it isn't, and is it forgivable by God, or is it going to put someone in hell or not? And the ultimate outcome of that was
if you're saved first.
He was saved first, so he did make it into heaven. But I thought,
makes no sense.
These people just lost a loved one. They need comfort, not religious crap.
Yeah.
And then another funeral of a dear friend you got to speak at, and you spoke out of personal relationship with this woman. And you made it personal. And you showed that there was a relationship there, and that this woman was a good woman and had many good experiences. And I don't know, it was just a very comforting message that you had to speak to the family. And then someone else gets up there and says, if you want to be with her again, you better get right with the Lord. And once again, it just turns into...
It has nothing to do with relationship between one another. Just, oh, you better do X, Y, Z, or you won't make it.
Yeah, it was terrible. And used to, I didn't pay much attention. But I guess as I'm older now and things have been called into question, I do pay close attention to what's being said, and I'm thinking, this is comforting. And, you know, he even, you know, I was talking when we first opened the show about being lazy, you know, how you have rules and guidelines and regulations. It sounded like he had preached that funeral 1,000,000 times. It sounded so robotic. Mm-hmm. And he was a friend of the family.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you know,
knew him longer than I did.
Shouldn't there be some sort of relating to these people, not just standing up and giving your canned speech about, you know, are you going to make it to heaven to see this individual again or not? You know, it's just very, very robotic.
Well, I think you're hitting on something there that's worth bringing out, and that is, I think that kind of helps identify what religion is compared to who God is, you know, because religion and having a religious viewpoint of God, it is a separate thing. And as a matter of fact, that is one of the things that he was bringing out. You know, you've got to separate yourself. And that's where it gets so absurd. It's like, you know, when you get in the boat, or you get in the saved position, we'll call it, then you have to separate yourself from so much else that goes on, you know, and you get in this little box. But the deceptive thing is nobody stays in that box. They go out and they live their lives out here and pretend like that they're different. And it is, Dr. Jones talks about that. It is a game of pretension. But what we really have in this thing of relationship is being who we really are and sitting down civilly, talking, and trying to work out our differences. See where we can come to terms. And I love it.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
We have 0 minutes left.
Uh-oh.
So
Well, I guess I'm going to go ahead, since you're back today, I'm going to let you close this thing out.
Well, it was good to be back. I really enjoyed the conversation today.
Me too.
Definitely see this whole movement that's going on is very, very necessary.
Oh, yeah.
Very much for it, especially after this week. Just a reminder of what's still out there that needs to be overcome. There's many hurting people right now that still have that question of, am I going to go to heaven or am I going to go to hell? Am I going to get to be with my loved ones? Does God really love me? It's terrible. It's time to get rid of all that nonsense.
Yeah, I agree.
But since we have no time left,
we'll have to take it up again next week.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank our viewers for joining us today, and please stay tuned. Got some more great shows to come. So we'll see you next week.
Absolutely.